And with this, I'm going to hand it over to Jeffery, who's actually going to talk more about the spirit behind some of these learning initiatives in practice.
Hi, everybody. 大家下午好. I'm very, very happy to be here. It's I think my third Shenzhen Maker Faire. I came to the first one in 2012, then I missed 2013, then I was here last year. And so grateful to the SEED team for asking me to come back again. And Sylvia and I kind of hacked the program a little bit because we wanted to talk about the research we've been doing on Shanzhai and making, but also because I'm from a place called Institute for the Future, so 美国未来研究院. And Institute for the Future, we are a nonprofit, independent futures research group. And so we tell stories and we create visions about the future 5 or 10 years from now. And we've been talking about the future of Shenzhen as a maker city for quite some years now. And it's actually coming true. I mean, of course, Shenzhen has been a maker city for several decades. This is not a new story. But what is new and so exciting is to see the global makers intersecting with what's happening here in China and the birth of something really new and really different. But because my job is to think about the future, I want to talk about Shenzhen in 2025, not just as a maker city, but as a learning city. Because we can see from the past 4 years of growth of the Maker Faire alone in Shenzhen, every year we're getting more and more people. And of course, this year with Premier Li visiting Shenzhen and visiting Chaihua Makerspace, all of China now is excited about the idea of the maker movement and 众创空间 and all of these things. So every province in China is thinking about the future of making. So when you think about learning, it's kind of amazing what's happening. So at the Institute for the Future, we talk about a lot of really exciting, transformative technologies that will change our lives, like autonomous vehicles by Google, or we talk about Bitcoin. But sometimes the world around us is changing so quickly, and it's part of our everyday lives, and we don't even really notice it. And that's what's happening with learning and with mobile phones. So every day, we ask the internet questions if we want to find out some information. We all do this. We do this 5, 10, 15 times a day. Every moment is becoming a learning moment because of mobile devices. So there's never a moment when we don't know the answer to something. Of course, I'm talking about not philosophical questions about the nature of life, but information that we can find online. And now, with voice interfaces, we don't even have to type. We can just ask the device to help us with information. So learning is spilling out of the classroom and into every single moment of our lives. And this is really a profound shift for humans. And we can access all kinds of information. We can access, of course, any like Wikipedia or newspapers, all these kinds of things. We can even take university courses online. And there's a whole bunch of new kinds of content which we're starting to be able to find online to learn all different kinds of things. And I'm going to tell you about a few examples from the United States, but I know that online learning communities in China are very, very active. And you also have similar kinds of learning communities. So if I wanted to learn, for example, about design, I could go to something like Skillshare down here on the bottom left, bottom right, which is a community where people can put up their own courses online. Anyone who wants to teach about design can put their design course on Skillshare. And some of them are free and some of them cost a little bit of money. Or I might go to Treehouse, which is a website which will help remind me to study and get me excited and motivated to study. Or maybe I can go to Gibbon, which will create playlists of different kinds of learning materials about design. So just as you might create a playlist of your favorite songs, this will create a playlist of good things to know about design. Or maybe if I really learn through watching videos, I could go to Tuts Plus and do a video course. My point is that there are all kinds of ways to learn. And so we can learn using our mobile devices and connect to all kinds of new content, whether that's in China or in the US. The other very exciting thing that I want to share is the rise of something called micro-credentialing. And it sounds kind of complicated, but actually it's quite simple. It was started about 4 years ago by the Mozilla Foundation, which are the creators of the Firefox browser in the United States. And they started something called Open Badges. And they said, all of this learning is happening, but how do we know what people are learning? And once you learn something, how can you tell other people that you learned it? When you go to university, of course, you get a degree. But we learn so many things now in the real world. How will we share with other people the knowledge? How will we tell people that we learned something? And this is the growth of what we call open badges. So for example, if you learn a new program, or if you learn how to use a CNC machine, for example, you may get a digital badge. So the badge will verify that you know this skill. And you can start to collect what they call a backpack of all kinds of different digital badges which you can share with people. Credly is another example of this. And Credly is now helping all kinds of organizations, companies and government organizations, helping them figure out how can we track what people know and then share what people know. So if I earn a digital badge, perhaps the Maker Faire may have its own digital badge in the future, for example. And then I can share my digital badges on LinkedIn, on Facebook, anywhere I like. So you can start to tell people what you know. Now, I want to share, the reason I'm telling you about all these different tools is because I'd like us to think about a thought experiment. And I'm going to tell you one more example, and then I'd like us to think together about what Shenzhen might look like, using things like digital badges and online content that we can connect with through our mobile phones. And this is an example which comes out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So it's a city in the northeastern part of the United States. And it's called a nomadic campus. And this young man, Timothy Freeman Cook, has created his own school. And the school has no campus. It just uses the buildings in the city which they may be able to have access to. A coffee shop or a restaurant. If the restaurant is closed in the morning, the school may use the restaurant, or it may use some empty rooms in a government building. I'm sure there are many, many empty rooms in Shenzhen which are not being used every day. And he teaches classes. The classes are quite cheap. In the United States, they're around 2,000 renminbi, which is very, very cheap for a university-level class. He teaches classes in carpentry, in web design, in GIS and mapping, in philosophy. It's called the Saxifrage School. And the idea is that perhaps we don't even need a university. If we can have digital badges, which will tell people what we learned, and we can connect with our mobiles, and we can use the resources, empty spaces in the city, we may be able to have a kind of campus which is very low cost and distributed. So really what we're talking about, perhaps, in the next 10 years, is the birth of a kind of learning city, where learning is distributed across the city. And the most interesting example that we're seeing in this right now also is coming from Pittsburgh, and it's called the learn.pgh. And what learn.pgh has done is organize all of the learning opportunities across the city and share those with people. So for example, if you wanted to learn about urban farming or agriculture, learn.pgh has organized every activity and event and learning opportunity about urban agriculture for you. They have organized lecture series. There are workshops that are being done at stores and supermarkets. There are farms who are offering courses. There are libraries who have movies that they may show. There are all these different things happening around the city, and learn.pgh has taken all of those and organized them and presented them as a kind of curriculum that anyone can take to learn agriculture or carpentry. So you start to get the idea of the city as a campus and all the things happening in the city as a kind of curriculum and coursework. And many, many different kinds of people may be teachers, not just university professors. So the question, so when they organize their curriculum, this is one sample curriculum, in the city, across the city, they found all of these different resources, 9 different courses, 19 workshops, 21 different lectures, 12 films. And so the point is that at any moment in a large city, there are many, many learning opportunities happening. We just don't know. We just don't know them all the time. So if we think about Shenzhen, and you think about all of the making and manufacturing activities that are happening in a city like Shenzhen, what would a manufacturing or making curriculum look like 10 years from now? Who would you talk to? What if you thought of a place like Huaqiangbei as a campus? Who would the teachers be? What kind of badges, what kind of digital badges might we give to show people what we could learn in a place like Huaqiangbei? Or what about industrial design? Where might you go in Shenzhen? Where might you go to the startup weekends and the prototyping workshops and the hacker spaces, all of these things that you're doing in Shenzhen, where you could learn a university-level education in industrial design? Or what about farming, urban farming? There's lots of different food production activities happening. In fact, in Shenzhen, you could probably pick almost any topic and you could find people in the city to learn from. Now, there are a couple of challenges when we think about this. It's an interesting vision, but it's a very, very difficult thing to pull off. First of all, because most people will still want to go to a regular university. Most people will say, could I really take a class in manufacturing or design at Huaqiangbei? Is someone going to hire me with this kind of a digital badge or a degree? This is we don't know. It's a big question. Universities, if you would like to go to school, would you be able to use this kind of learning and integrate it back into a university? This is also a challenge. And perhaps the biggest challenge of all, will employers accept this kind of learning? we're starting to see in some companies in the United States, in Silicon Valley, a few employers are starting to be more flexible in hiring people. So Google, for instance, is much more open to different kinds of learning. We think in the next 5 to 10 years, there will be more opportunities to show what you've learned. So, Shenzhen in 2025, what if you have started to deal with, address the job losses from automation that we know will happen in the city? You found something for people to reorganize and channel their activities into, for people who've lost their jobs from manufacturing. What if a wide range of people in Shenzhen are seen as educators? And what if Shenzhen even could be thought of as not just a maker city, but a world leader in a kind of city-based engineering, manufacturing, design, and maker learning? Some of the things that you might do, for example, would be to have this would be a centralized online hub that would tell you who are the people in the city who know things. Who are those people in Huaqiangbei? Who are the people in the maker spaces? What's happening across the city? What's the calendar? What are some paths that I can take that is a curriculum through the city? And maybe what kinds of verified or validated badges could I have? Now, again, this is really not easy. I'm not saying this is an easy thing to do. But the wonderful thing about Shenzhen is that you have Tencent here, so you have a lot of help thinking about the future of information organization. You have this incredible network that you're building out across the city with, you could think of it already as a nomadic campus. There's an explosion of maker spaces and all different kinds of opportunities. And perhaps most exciting, you have this incredible and growing community of Chinese and international makers, engineers, designers, entrepreneurs who are already here, who are coming to Shenzhen. So as Sylvia said, there are university students who are coming to Shenzhen, and there are professors who are coming here to study what's happening here. How can we harness this and organize it and make it a learning resource so that in 2025, Shenzhen is not just a maker city, but a learning city? Thank you.